You're listening to the Roofing Success Podcast, a show created to inspire roofing contractors to achieve optimal success in their roofing businesses. I'm the host, Jim Moline, the co-author of the book, Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors, How to Triple Your Sales and Turn Your Roofing Website into an Online Lead Generation Machine. I'm also the co-founder of Roofer Marketers, the digital marketing agency for the roofing industry. On each episode, I'll be sitting down with industry leaders to talk about their processes, the lessons they've learned, and how to find success in roofing. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. As always, share, follow, subscribe, comment, do that for us. Leave us a good review. That'd be awesome. And if you want to take the conversation beyond the podcast here, go to Facebook, type in Roofing Success, and join the Roofing Success Facebook group. Today, we're going to talk about sustainability. It's something that doesn't come up often in conversations, but maybe should come up a little bit more often. So I was having a conversation the other day with Nick Dillen. Nick, give us a little intro about yourself and your company and how you got started in roofing.
Sure, of course. So again, my name is Nick with Formula Roofing out of Denver, Colorado. We were founded in 2011. I'm the operations manager here. And I actually got started with a different roofing company in a sales capacity, primarily because I saw it as a way to make some money with flexible hours, and it seemed lucrative. And I think that's how a lot of people start in this industry.
Yeah.
At the time, I was an aspiring musician, and the hours were appealing to me, and I was able to, pay my rent and cover my bills. And it's been going strong from there. I got a little bit more serious with roofing when I wanted to propose to my now wife because I wanted to ask her father's permission, and I knew that, struggling musician probably wasn't going to cut it. So I got a little bit more involved, and I've been doing it ever since.
That's awesome, man. And when what brought you to start Formula back in 2011?
So the company that several of us were working for at the time was sort of spiraling downhill, not to be too negative about it. But we had learned a lot and saw an opportunity to create our own company and brand.
Nice. And then from there, you guys went on to acquire another company along the way, haven't you?
That's correct. So we acquired Custom Tile Roofing, which provided us with not only a brick and mortar sort of location, but also allowed us to acquire the tile inventory that the founder, Vince Hobson, had collected over the past 30 plus years. So that's kind of our niche, tile roofing, but we do a lot of asphalt residential and a lot of commercial as well.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, you're in the Denver market, right? Like it's storm damage restoration work, a lot of the time. So the company that you guys acquired, strictly tile roofing, correct?
Primarily tile roofing.
Primarily.
Yep. Being called custom tile roofing, you're going to do primarily tile roofing, but we're we have a little bit of a wider swath in terms of what we do here.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So in that's kind of where some of the conversation that we were having is around, right? In developing sustainability in the roofing industry, around some of the products, maybe better repair work versus replacement all the time. The new advancements in the solar shingles, things like that. What did you kind of start to realize this after getting into the tile side of things? Is that where you started thinking more about the sustainability in the roofing industry?
Sure. And you know, Vince, who's still a good friend of mine, liked to say that he was green before being green was cool. So we kind of adopted his model, which is essentially when a concrete or clay tile roof gets to the point where it does need to be replaced, rather than throwing that into a roll-off, let's spend a little bit more time and money and stack and crate it and bring it to our yard. That way, when somebody needs to perform a repair, and that particular tile is no longer in production, then it is available. So in instances where it is a storm damage claim, maybe there's only a handful of tiles that need to be replaced and the rest of the underlayment and roofing system is in fine shape. So we're able to perform those repairs, which ultimately reduces waste, and I think is, you know, it may not be the biggest financial gain on the short term, but I think in the long term, in terms of how we interact with insurance companies, I think that it will ultimately benefit us.
Yeah, definitely. And so you guys do a lot of that, of essentially salvaging the tile from these tile roofs. So what's the process there? And then do other contractors in the area, are you, do you become a supplier then for other contractors in the area kind of, or do you just focus on, hey, now we have an inventory that we can use in our repairs?
So we are a resource to local contractors, homeowners, and insurance agents, both here in state, and we also ship out of state when the need arises. And in terms of our process for the salvaging, we use a lift conveyor and essentially bring metal crates to the job site, download them. Somebody's sitting in the crate and they stack them up.
Yeah. So just simple, bring them back to the yard, store them for when needed. Inventory management kind of 101 stuff there.
It might sit there for decades, but
yeah,
you never
that's
know.
what I was thinking. Yeah, I was thinking, like, so you guys are gonna have some you're gonna have the tile shingle boneyard, right? Like
That's right.
but that's all right. And how have you gone about identifying those tiles to then be able to use them when, with a comparable tile or with an exact match when needed?
So, in terms of tile identification, we can typically tell just from a photo of the front and
Yep.
back of the tile. At other times, contractors or other customers will come with a physical sample, which is always very helpful. But the identification process, once you know what you're looking at, is fairly straightforward, but it does take some time to familiarize yourself with all the different tiles. And we do have our inventory on our website, as well as some sort of tile identification 101.
Nice. Yeah, that's like, I have a friend, John Senek, John the Roof Pro, like he does that with shingles, right? Like you just send him a picture and he, like, the guy, he's just been doing it for so long and has that knowledge base. So then this is kind of, your thoughts around, or where it's maybe where the sustainability thought process started with you was around, getting involved on the tile side. How has that expanded now to, the asphalt shingle side of things and into, now, the future of, solar shingles and things like that?
Sure. So, in our market, we found ourselves re-roofing the same property several times over the course of a decade. And with insurance premiums rising and, the sort of pushback that you might encounter from adjusters just not wanting to shell out and write the checks for, roof replacements that may not be 100% necessary, we started having a conversation about products that were designed to withstand the elements and that might perform a little bit better in our climate. So rather than going through that, as much as I want to see, Mrs. Johnson again in 3 years and put another 30-year asphalt shingle on there, it's worth at least having a conversation as to whether, a class 4 impact resistant concrete tile or a Da Vinci or something that has a slightly longer life expectancy might benefit them with their overall maintenance of their property.
And in that, what we talked about a week or so ago when we were chatting, it's like, it's almost a recycling issue too, right? Like when, tearing off these roofs that don't really, that could be replaced with something that lasts longer or could be repaired, repair or restore, I think is kind of, more of restoring on the tile side, repairing on the shingle side, but to prevent a lot of the excess, waste from especially in a hail damaged market, a storm damaged market like the Front Range of Colorado.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there was previously a recycling program for asphalt roofs here locally, but that was discontinued a few years ago. It was called Roads to Roofs or something. No, Roofs to Roads. I'm sorry. So they were essentially repurposing the asphalt shingle waste into potential road base for roads. But I guess that system, for whatever reason, was discontinued. So it's very difficult to find a place to recycle the asphalt roofs. And the unfortunate truth is that, it's cheaper to just throw it away, right? So
Yes.
We're trying to position ourselves as a company that, number one, has the best interests of our customer in mind, but we also have the belief that they may be willing to pay slightly more to ensure that all of their waste does not go to the landfill. And I think that that's kind of what we're trying to do in terms of establishing trust. And, I'd be happy to go out and repair roofs for the next couple years, but or decades even, however long the homeowner is in the property. But, we don't necessarily want to have the need to replace it every 5 years. I think that is just wasteful and sort of short-sighted.
So how has it been in that conversation to homeowners? Like that's kind of become a unique selling proposition of your company, right? How do you position yourself and guide customers into the different, the new, more impact resistant types of roofing systems?
Sure. So one thing that we offer is essentially a 5-year hail warranty on certain products that we feel will withstand 2-inch hail. And we basically present it as, if your property is damaged, you don't have to file an insurance claim. We'll just come out and swap these tiles for free, because we know that the product that we're installing was installed correctly and that the underlying system is functioning perfectly. And, the worst that's going to happen is, 1 or 2 dozen broken tiles, which we happen to have. So that has kind of been our pitch in that regard. And it's been received well, I think.
Do you use certain language in some of your marketing or anything like that positions your company in that way? Have you found that to have get some buy-in and attraction from the homeowners before they call you, or
I think it's a certain demographic that it appeals to, particularly those that have been through several hailstorms and have had to go the insurance route and replace their roof several times in the period that they've been in the home. So yeah, and you have to also come out of pocket. Your insurance company
Yeah.
is not, of course, not going to pay for a concrete tile roof when all you had pre-existing was an asphalt shingle. So it's an investment in the same way that the solar shingle is an investment. I mean, we just want to have the conversation about how long you're going to be in the home, what your
Yeah.
goals are, and what is the best product for you, not just coming in and saying, hey, we're going to, replace your roof in 2 weeks and it'll be done in a day. Trying to kind of educate the customer, which is of course a huge part of sales period, but kind of widening the field in terms of what their replacement options are and seeing what makes the most sense for their goals.
So and that's what I was, really in when someone has a storm damage, a lot of times the pitch or the sale is around, get your roof replaced for the cost of your, for your deductible, right? That's all you have to come out of pocket. But you're changing that conversation when you start to talk about the concrete tile so in the upsell to that. So walk me through that a little bit more in detail. Like you said that you're talking to the homeowner more about the goals or how long they're going to be in the home, and what other kind of insights are you trying to get from the customer that would make them fit into, hey, this would be a great option for you to invest this extra money into this type of roofing system?
Sure. So it's increased property value in the case of a tile roof. It's a question with the solar shingle as to how much energy consumption offset they can have if they were to
Yep.
transition to a solar shingle. And it's an overall goal and priority conversation, right?
Yes.
So, if know that there's going to be an out-of-pocket cost, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And having the conversation as to whether or not that is worth it for them, depending on their current situation.
Yeah, definitely. And because I could see that being a challenge sometimes, right? Especially when there's another person at the door saying, hey, just your deductible. Don't worry about that. Your insurance will pay in another couple of years.
Right. And, a lot of the residential work that we do is our cash or retail deals. We don't
Oh, okay.
rely as heavily, I think, on the insurance, the ebbs and flows of
That's
whether
right.
or not a storm damage occurred. But when you encounter a customer who has, I was talking with somebody today, and we'll be doing her roof next week. She has an asphalt shingle roof, and her home was previously tile. I think that whoever replaced it, whoever the previous homeowner was, kind of downgraded the system, and she wants to go back up to what it originally was. And it's like everything, a case by case basis. But I think that just having that conversation is important to make sure that they have their best interests in mind when they're choosing a roofing product. That's all.
Yeah, definitely. And so what do you see? You guys are involved in the GAF show your GAF or master elite or and you're part of the GAF solar shingle I guess launch, or you want to, you're starting to sell GAF solar shingles. What are your, that changes the conversation in the sale of roofing to a point around that energy savings. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So I think that the GAF product is very aesthetically pleasing, and the flush integration with the traditional asphalt shingle and the installation method is very appealing. It's pretty economical. I think that it makes the most sense for homeowners that are looking to replace their roof anyways, as opposed to somebody with a brand new roof that wants to offset their utility bill. It's brand new to the Colorado market. It will be available on April 1st. And we're really excited about it. We're one of 5 local Master Elite GAF contractors that are part of the quote unquote pilot program.
Pilot program there. Yeah. And I mean, Colorado's a great, the Front Range is a great place for solar. I mean, there's more days of sunshine on the Front Range of Colorado than in San Diego. So, like it is a great place for, for solar, to own a solar system. How do you feel about the energy efficiency of the solar shingle versus the solar panels? I've kind of heard that as people like from some solar people that I know that are like, they're just not there yet with the solar shingle. What do you think about what are your thoughts on that?
So as we embarked with this program, we actually did an apples to apples in terms of kilowatt hour output, cost of various rack mounted systems versus the GAF product. And what we found is that, dollar for dollar, it actually gets you more output, especially if you need to replace your roof anyways. So it's a very logical and rational decision. My personal, I would put it on my own roof, but my roof is kind of cut up, and there are certain instances where it makes the most sense. So we want to make sure that we, again, it's a case by case thing, but I think that the output is either equal to or exceeds typical rack mounted solar.
Nice. And what are your expectations going into this? Have you started to have conversations in the market around the solar shingle with some homeowners or property owners? And how do they feel about it? What kind of feedback are you getting?
So it's pretty new for us, but we have been devoting a lot of resources to pushing it, or at least having a conversation like what I was saying previously. Like, this is an option for you. And if you want to have a, roof that is the roof of the future, then this is definitely an option that you should consider. And speaking candidly with solar, yes, it's an investment, and you may not see those returns for 8 years. But if you're looking at a 25-year investment, then you're going to save on average, let's say, $15,000 to $20,000. So if that appeals to you and that's something that you want to invest in, then this is a product worth exploring for sure.
Nice.
And there's, of course, the green component to it, which is very appealing to people. I think that anybody in the storm restoration industry knows that changing climates are not always good for us. Like, you think that maybe if that means it hails every year, then great, bring it on. I'm going to run my diesel truck all day long. But, just thinking about various options, I think it is a worthy conversation. And I think that the product is very solid.
I haven't looked into the impact resistance of it at all. How is that in comparison? Or how does that stand up?
So they're still working on their certifications.
Okay.
But anecdotally, if you touch it and feel it, it's very sturdy. So again, it's a new product to the market, so they haven't done all of their testing yet.
Yep.
But I think that it would be, once they do, it'll be considered a Class 4 product.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting the way, I mean, we see it. The solar industry and the roofing industry have been like have become an overlapping. I want to say, in a lot of ways. So many, roofing companies using, adding solar as a service that they provide. It makes sense. I spoke with a solar distributor recently, and it's easy. It's an easy conversation for roofing contractors to have. Is that one of the reasons that you're also adding that into your kind of portfolio, or what do you think?
Yeah, so we've been flirting with solar for I would say, about the past 7 years.
Yeah.
And some of the pushback has to do with, the integration into the grid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some of the salespeople find it a little bit more complicated. They can't put the roof up as soon as they normally could.
Yeah.
And that, prevents them from getting paid, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, we were sending out a flyer regarding solar options really for the better part of this past decade. But there was some reluctance from the salespeople to really push it for the reasons that I described. But with this particular product, it's installed by the roofers, so it doesn't really delay them. And, it is available, unlike some of the other integrated solar products. So I think that it has the potential to be a real game changer. And it kind of fits our philosophy of, sustainable roofing materials and, roofs that are designed to last for more than 10 years. And I know that some of the, if any, shingle manufacturers or suppliers see this, they're going to be pissed off at me. But, we really do want to have the MO of putting on a roof that we would put on our own home,
Yeah.
and thinking about what roofing might look like in 5 years or 10 years, as opposed to simply turning and burning.
Yeah. Green, and being green is not it's not a standard thing in the roofing industry, right? Like focusing on these types of things, you're going against the grain.
I know, but it is a tidal wave that can't be resisted forever.
Yeah.
And either you innovate and adapt, or you get left in the dust, right? So, there's going to be some friction associated with these types of transitions, but I think that companies like GAF and Tesla are really leading the way. And, they understand the potential for this market, and, they see the win-win. I mean, a lot of the pushback towards green initiatives is typically financial, right? I don't want to do that because it's going to cost me more. But then think about, I think it was either Hilton or Hyatt, one of those large hotel companies, that decided that they were going to stop providing plastic straws, right? So not only do they get great press for saying, hey, we're putting a stop to plastic straws, they're bad for the environment, but they also save millions of dollars in the plastic straws that they were purchasing. So I think any green, quote unquote, initiative is successful when it's a win-win for, both the environment, sustainability, the customer, and the manufacturer. And I think that GAF sees that. And I think that that's potentially where this industry is headed.
So I can see that on the solar side, right? With the solar shingle and those things. Where is the win-win for the contractor or the manufacturer of asphalt shingle roofing in being more green with their with their day-to-day stuff? Like, instead of just replacing that roof every 3 to 5 years, scrape it off, go where do you see the win-win there?
I think if you can present it as something that's appealing to the homeowner, then they will potentially be willing to pay more, knowing and having that peace of mind that they are doing their part to kind of combat climate change and promote sustainability. That's a tough question. Obviously, petroleum-based asphalt shingles are tied to a lot of different markets that certainly don't want their their income to be affected by something that actually lasts longer. But I think that we'll find that you could potentially charge more for that same product if it has a solar capability, for instance.
Yeah.
So that is where you see the win-win. You're an industry leader, and something that I say sometimes is, I don't want to roof the same 500 houses 5 times. I want to roof 500,000 houses once.
Yeah.
And that is something that I think is achievable.
With that, speaking about shingles, and there's a lot of a lot of industries that go into that. One being the oil industry, and seeing the price of the fluctuation in those costs recently, and gas prices going up and oil costs going up and all of that, which will then lead its way into those bundles, right? Like and one thing that I've seen it in like some Facebook groups recently, and it's like, yep, shingle prices are going up, but when the market changes, when gas goes back down, those prices don't go back down. So have you seen the gap close, or do you see the gap closing on the cost of some of these materials?
I think that is a big piece of the puzzle. And everything you said can kind of follow a pretty linear logic, right?
Yeah.
So we're seeing material prices go up all over the construction industry. That's a fact. We're seeing, companies get a little bit desperate sometimes in certain markets because contractors specifically, because they don't have the same revenues that they did the year before. Maybe there wasn't a storm. So we're being kind of squeezed from various directions, right? I think that it's hard to wrap your head around sometimes.
Yeah.
But there has to be a solution that will, combat all of these particular conflicts, right? So if you have that conversation about rising material prices and gas prices, and that ties in very neatly with, well, let's talk about some solar options. And it's just very logical to at least consider what makes the most sense. I mean, there's certainly a time and place for asphalt shingles. That's probably 70% of what we do on residential projects, because it makes sense. But I think that the trajectory of the industry will be to have a conversation about, rather than just spending your deductible, let's talk about some different products that might make more sense for your long-term possession of this home.
And this is just my curiosity, during the kind of inflation of prices, through COVID and then to now, have you seen the same jumps in prices on your concrete tile side than you have on the asphalt shingle side? Has it been about equal in inflation?
Excellent question. I think that most of the concrete tile manufacturers tried to resist that. And, to answer your question, I would say that asphalt shingle roofing components have gone up 25% in 2 years. Concrete tile components have maybe gone up 5 to 10.
Okay. So it is a shrinking gap, maybe, and it could be a blip on the radar. We don't know, but that's another thing that makes some of these other roofing systems more appealing. If that gap isn't as large, it's hard to sell. here's your asphalt shingle price, and here's your, you know, your concrete tile price. But if the gap isn't as big, there's a potential for other sales there. One of the other things you had mentioned, and this is a challenge, and that has been a challenge in the Denver market over the last couple of years, is if you're relying on that storm, you are having some problems probably, right? There haven't been the big storms over the last couple of years. So you guys have focused on you focus on retail also. So did you make a conscious decision about that when you started in 2011? Were you going to focus more on storm damage restoration work or retail work?
It was primarily insurance work. Yeah.
Insurance work, right?
Yeah.
So then as the years passed, how did you create a retail, a substantive retail side of things?
I think a lot of it was born out of just performing repairs for specifically tile roof homeowners. And that is not typically something, if your underlayment is shot or you need to replace a valley or restore a certain section of your roof, then that's not going to be covered by insurance. And a lot of these homeowners are in multi-million-dollar homes. So anyone who's ever experienced a roof leak knows that they need to get it fixed, right? And so there's some urgency there, and there's not this expectation of my insurance company is going to cover this. This is just, par for the course in owning a nice home. Yeah.
And that right there, I think, is a great insight for companies that may be struggling in markets that haven't had the storm activity that they've had in the past. How do you, balancing that out? And what it sounds like to me is, of what you said, is you added higher end, you added higher end systems to your repertoire, right? And those higher end systems, the tile systems and things like that, are more commonly found on the higher end homes, and therefore, so you've kind of entered this another niche a little bit, right?
And it doesn't, we will obviously perform repairs for sure. It doesn't matter whether your house is $100,000 or 10 million,
Yep.
You need some help. And I've heard this, you probably have too, when you're putting together an estimate, what type of car was in the driveway, right? And there's this tendency when sending out cash bids of saying, well, what can they afford? I don't approach it that way. Yeah. It's, it's a calculation based on the scope of work that needs to happen. It doesn't matter whether you have, a Maserati in there or a Civic. Well, Civics are pretty nice these days, but that's right. Like I just never really liked that thought process. But yeah, to your point, like people need their roofs fixed, and whether or not it can be repaired or replaced, we're trying to establish trust, and we want customers that hopefully don't need to call us again, but would if something else arises. And, in this business, you're in digital marketing, but the word of mouth is, one of the strongest that you can encounter. And that's right. Digital and SEO bolsters that, then great. You need to have an online presence, and you need to be active in several channels. But we're trying to give the customer the best experience that they can, and know that we're the ones that are going to shoot them straight when it comes to can this be repaired or does it need to be replaced? So I was off on add more, different higher end roofing systems to your repertoire. What you need to add to your repertoire is repairs. And, that's funny because a lot of contractors, first of all, won't even do repairs. They won't do them. Period. They will not. There's always a price point that makes sense. You figure out what it costs to send your technician out there, how long it's going to take, what your materials are. And if you can line up a half dozen of those for the day, then you're going to do just fine.
And sometimes it's easier to line up those half dozen for the day than it is to find a roof replacement to do, because none of your competitors are doing repair work. Very few of your competitors are doing repair work, right? Like, have you found that at all in your business?
Yeah, like I said, that there is a reluctance to do repair work, which is, in my mind, terrible, because we're supposed to be roofers.
That's
Your
right.
roof is leaking.
That's
You
right.
need help. Sorry, I can't help you unless I replace the whole roof. And you should have that conversation. Well, it's 25 years old. It's probably at the end of its useful lifespan. We can put a Band-Aid on it, but
Yeah.
you're going to have to replace this sooner than later. And you can cross your fingers for a storm event, but who knows when or if that's going to happen.
I have a past guest on the show, John Broche from Meredith Home Improvements in Pittsburgh and Morgantown, West Virginia. They also own a roof rejuvenation system called Ugly Roof, and they really have tied in and focused in on repair work. And we were talking one day, and he was saying, yeah, like his competitors get phone calls for repairs, and they're like, no, just call Meredith. Like they convert a portion of those repairs, they convert into replacements because of the things you're saying. It's 25-year-old roof. This is what we could do on the repair side, but it's probably not going to hold up. This is what and being honest with them about what they need to do. And that builds that goodwill with that customer. The other roofer came out and said, no, you just replace it. Just replace it. Just replace it. And you're there having that conversation that, well, let's see what a repair can do. And this is our real, educated opinion on if this repair is going to last, how long it will last, what you're in store for into the future. Maybe we can get it, you can spend the $1,000 now or the $2,000 now instead of the full replacement. I think it is a missed opportunity for most roofing contractors. But the challenges are, and you can give me your thoughts on this, why I think most contractors don't do repair work is that their crews that they subcontract to don't do repair work, right? And so building that in-house team is something that a lot of contractors avoid.
Well, we're in the same boat, right? So if you are sending out subs to assess and perform repairs, there's a price that makes sense for them, and then there's a price that makes sense for you, and then you do the calculation and say, does this price make sense for you, Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner, right? That's one thought. I think that what I've encountered is with repair work specifically is that you have to really detail what you're working on and what you're doing and stating any other concerns. Because I think some of the reluctance is this roof is leaking. I did a $2,000 repair. Hey, it's still leaking. Well, unfortunately, I told you that you needed a new roof. We talked about our options. We only worked in this one specific location, because what do you always get? Well, that leak that you supposedly fixed is back, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that that's some of the reluctance as well.
It is, yeah, and that's where you have to setting proper expectations, pushing back, and saying, look, I want you to understand, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, this is what I'm thinking is, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of times it's just easier to not have those harder conversations, or to just, we'll go up there, we'll fix it. We'll fix that leak and then move on to the next one. And then when you do get that call back, they're extremely unhappy, right? So that proper expectation set is probably even more important on the repair side.
Right. And documentation. I always send out, a very specific diagram of what we're working on and a very detailed scope of what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that way, when another part of the roof starts failing, you can say, well, that's not actually something that we worked on. So
Yeah. Yeah. And you had mentioned referrals earlier, and getting referrals from these customers. I always I talk to contractors all the time about this, is how do you get a referral? Well, you do good work for someone, right? If you do good work for someone, then that's an opportunity for a future referral. But if you don't do work for someone, you don't get a referral. Like it's, that. And so when you're able to do, a half dozen of those in a day, that's a half dozen opportunities for potential referrals to their friends, families, neighbors, and you could still probably, do you guys in the sales process, do you still, do you do anything similar to the, yard sign, knocking the neighbors, that type of thing while you're out there on those repair jobs?
yeah, not well. Some of that takes a little bit more time,
Yep.
and it sort of decreases your ability to be efficient
Yeah,
and make that repair worthwhile. But when you're up on a roof and the neighbor is walking past, they're like,
that's
oh,
right.
I also need a roofer. Excuse me, do you have a business card? Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, with roof replacements, we're obviously doing all of the standard things,
Yeah.
introducing ourselves to the neighbors and putting up yard signs. We also send out a review request, basically, how did we do, which
Yep.
is pretty standard. And we have, Visa gift cards for referrals. So we try to farm that particular market, but I think that there's probably more that we could be doing, being a little bit more proactive, and reminding people that we exist, I guess, is
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, I think you have an opportunity there to expand that, even if it's just some door hangers or something, on every, something quick that the, repair's done. Just hit a quick door hangers on the, 6-pack or something like that,
Right.
and drive on away. At least, there's a lot of opportunities. The other opportunity that people miss, and I remember a contractor that I talked to down in Louisiana who did this. Essentially, they did repair work, and man, that's where they got their review counts up. Their reviews were through the roof. They had, hundreds and hundreds of reviews because they were out there doing so many of the repairs, right? And so they had more interactions with homeowners, more interactions with people, and so they got an abundance of reviews, and just overwhelmed their competitors in their market with the amount of reviews that they had. And it was because of the repair work that they were doing.
Right. And, I maybe shouldn't say this, but some of our sales guys who are also in a project management role and have roofing expertise, if they go out to a repair and it takes them 5 minutes, they just say, hey, you know what? That took me 5 minutes to seal
That's
that
right.
thing. Just write me a nice review, would you?
Yep.
I mean, that goes a long way with people. You can't do it all. You can't, give everything away for free, but there are some instances where it actually yields more dividends by making that small investment in time, and, that in, fostering goodwill, and
Yeah, for sure.
letting people know that you're honest and you have good customer service, and that will blossom into more sales down the line. It's
Yes,
inevitable.
it's inevitable. So, so I think that's a great thing. Like, so sustainability is something that we should strive for and with the changes in the industry going forward, I think it's going to be easier to be able to do more sustainable roofing, right? There's so many more uh, 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 longer lasting roofing systems out there. You have, some of the F-wave stuff, and you have, and then with the GAF solar shingle, and you have, all the tile options, and there's so much cool stuff it will probably become more and more regular. The stone coated steel, we have a contractor that we work with down in Florida that it's just it's just a really great product for storm damage markets that will last a lot longer. And And I think that's a great thing to focus on. I think so one of the things, or what do you think the greatest insight is that you could share with our audience is that's going to help you guys find success with your roofing business?
Sure. But, you kind of made me think of something too, which is that with these more durable or sustainable products, the insurance premium goes down in most instances, right? So that's the win-win that we're talking about, right? Like
Yeah.
you have to be able to justify the increased cost or the investment, whether that's an increased property value or decreased insurance premiums or just fewer headaches and peace of mind. I think that, one of the things that I would like to kind of mend within the roofing storm damage industry is just establishing that trust and honesty with insurance companies, right? So when we're constantly going around saying this roof needs to be replaced, I found one hail bruise on it and you got to buy this thing, it's 2 years old, like that just discredits us. And then when you actually have a legitimate customer with significant damage, they're already on the defensive saying, nope, we're not going to buy it. We're not going to buy it. And you explain to them why it can't be repaired. And you say, well, XYZ, I can't warranty this work. If I do this, it's going to leak and that's going to fall on me. So let's have a candid or honest conversation about what can be done and what is right here. And I think that would be, I guess, the advice that I would offer so that we can try to ensure that this industry continues to be successful and lucrative, because we know that the money is coming in a lot of cases from the insurance company. So just establishing that rapport, being reputable, and having candid conversations where we say, this is what is possible, this is what's happening, and this is what the policy owes for, and this is what I can do.
That's awesome, man. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. If you would like to generate more sales through your digital marketing efforts, please visit roofermarketers.com and get a copy of the book, Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors, How to Triple Your Sales and Turn Your Roofing Website into an Online Lead Generation Machine. Also, check the training section of the website for guides on everything from running effective pay-per-click ads to how to properly set up your Google My Business listing. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. Thanks for listening.